Thank you. Well, we've got all the slides. No, there we go. Yeah, Tait, obviously. I'm a psychotherapist and also a diabetes advocate. Next slide, please.
Just
Next
don't
slide.
hypnotize us, please. We have only 10 minutes.
I'll try not to. I shall raise my voice now and again. Yeah. Okay. You probably recognize from my accent, I actually come from Edinburgh in Scotland, but I emigrated down to the London borough of Bromley, hence the word Bromley down in the bottom right-hand corner. That's the travel announcements. Next slide, please. I've been living with type 2 diabetes, or shall we say I got married to my diabetes in March 1999, when my doctor, GP, decided to call me at 9 o'clock at night and tell me he was sending me to a diabetic clinic. That was fun. Not. In fact, I even went and made myself a cup of tea with milk and 2 sugars, and that was the last time I had milk and sugar in my tea or even coffee. Next slide, please. A while ago, somebody called my sugar, called and asked if they would describe my diabetes in 3 words. Now, that's quite difficult, so I want you to think about that. But the 3 words I came up with: isolated, struggling, and fearful. Next slide, please. Isolated. Why do I feel isolated? Well, not being a type 1 or type 2, that's either dieting or exercising or having one of the, supposed to be the easiest diabetes around, or even taking oral meds. I'm sort of in the middle. I take insulin, and I'm multiple daily insulin injections. So I need help in that area. And at meetings and everything else I seem to go to, I seem to be the only person that's type 2, or certainly on insulin anyway. So it always seems to me that if I need to find information, I need to listen to the type 1 diabetes, but I don't get anything else. And even in conferences, if you go to a conference, you'll find that mostly it's all about type 1. All of the research and everything else is geared towards type 1. Very little is done to type 2, which I find very frustrating. And so if that there are something like 450 million people in the world with diabetes, and 90% of them are with type 2 diabetes, and 30 to 20% of them are on insulin, which means that there's actually more people on insulin that have type 2 than there are actually with type 1. But we don't seem to get the same area of help in these areas. Oh, let's jump back to number 1 again. Okay.
Sorry,
we'll come back.
Okay.
Next slide anyway, when you get back. Next one. Next slide, please. There we go. Struggling. Yeah. So being somebody that struggles in a sense, because I get very little support from healthcare professionals. As a type 2, and certainly in the UK, we only see the GPs. And when I moved down to Bromley, I obviously had to see a new GP. She said that she was actually going to look after me, and then she left about 2 or 3 months later. There was no one else in surgery that actually had any diabetes specialization at that time. It has now, although the 2 people, that the doctor and the diabetic nurse, decided to leave just after Christmas. So I've now got a new person that is new. So it always seems to me to be a struggle to get any help from healthcare professionals. Whereas in Edinburgh, I was actually seen by a professor of endocrinology. I can never say that word. My apologies. So it doesn't help people to get their manage their diabetes properly, and that one of the reasons that I struggle was that I stopped struggling in a sense was that I created a peer support group for type 2 diabetes. And I now run two types of peer support groups, one for everybody, actually. I do not distinguish between type 1 and type 2. I believe it is just diabetes in general. So we are, as type 2 diabetics, and I hate that word, in the sense of people with diabetes, I don't get access to the tech that's around, the technology of the CGMs or the flash or whatever, or even the pumps, because in this country we are deemed it's not necessary for people with type 2 diabetes. So I find that very annoying and very it's not great, put it that way. So we're always struggling to maintain our good levels of insulin. And the final slides on these three. Next slide, please. Fearful. Why am I fearful? And a bit like Viola, I'm out of an age where I'm likely to end up in a home. And I want to know that the people that are going to look after me understand what diabetes is about, understand my diabetes, understand what I'm going through. And yes, I do suffer from depression, anxiety, and stress as well as anybody else, even though I'm a psychotherapist. We are human after all. So that's what I'm fearful. I'm fearful for my future of what is going to happen. However, let's look at a different mood. Next slide, please. In the future, let's move it into a more positive thing. Obviously, a cure. Well, yeah. Are we likely to get one in my lifetime? No. But it would be nice for other people. I would like to see, this is my wish list, really like to see peer support groups for people that are around so that we can actually get together. As I said, for me, I find it very, very difficult to actually find people that are similar to me. And one of the big things is removing that stigma, the stigma of diabetes. That diabetes, to me, is becoming more and more a disease where it is all about food and exercise. It is not. Well, there are people that can't do these sort of things. And we need to remove that stigma. We need to remove the stigma from media, healthcare professionals even, that when you go in, you're not looked as the person that has a lazy attitude to life. And even actually other people with diabetes, you know, type 1 and type 2s tend to have this thing about not, you know, as I said earlier, having the easy disease. We don't. There is no such thing as an easy diabetic person. And not to have a two-tier system of care, where some people with diabetes get the tech and others don't. We need everybody to get the same. And not just in the well-off countries, but everywhere in the world as well. Next slide, please. As my professor, Johnny McKnight in Edinburgh says, life is for living, and we have to live our life. We have to enjoy life more and be part of it rather than just having something called diabetes. And what I would like from healthcare professionals, other professionals around the world, even politicians and everything else, is to help us to manage our diabetes and not the diabetes managing us. We have to do this 24/7, 365 days a year, or 66 in leap years. We don't get a day off. We can't pack it away and pick it up in the next day or whatever. We live with this every day. It doesn't matter what type of diabetes you have. And I think the one way that we could actually do this is working together as healthcare professionals and patients with diabetes. Because together we can manage our diabetes, because everybody's diabetes is different. I have complications due to the diabetes that are different from everybody else's. So if we can get together, then we will work better. And that's one of the reasons why I like to do these things with IMI, hyper-resolve, and also trials at home, because it works for us to be working with the people that are doing these research. And I think that needs to be much more happening around the world.